Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good day. That's to you, depending where you are in the world. I am here live in London. It is approaching 2 a.m. That's Friday night, Saturday morning. Sabbath blessings, one and all. We're doing our nighttime devotion. The devotional is called Conflict and Courage, and today the title is Giants in the Land. The scripture reading comes from Genesis 6, verse 4. There were giants in the earth in those days. The first people upon the earth received their instructions from that infinite God who created the world. Those who received their knowledge direct from infinite wisdom were not deficient in knowledge. There were many inventions and improvements and labor-saving machines now that the ancients did not have. They did not need them. Men before the flood lived many hundreds of years, and when 100 years old were considered but youths. Those long-lived men had sound minds in sound bodies. They came upon the stage of action from the ages of 60 to 100 years, about the time those who now live the longest have acted their part in the little, short lifespan and have passed off the stage. There were many giants, men of great stature and strength, renowned for wisdom, skillful in devising the most cunning and wonderful works. But their guilt in giving loose rein to iniquity was in proportion to their skill and mental ability. God bestowed upon these antediluvians many and rich gifts, and they used his bounties to glorify themselves and turned them into a curse by giving their affections upon the gifts instead of the giver. They employed the gold and silver, the precious stones and the choice wood in the construction of habitations for themselves, and endeavored to excel one another in beautifying their dwellings with the most skillful workmanship. They sought only to gratify the desires of their own proud hearts and reveled in scenes of pleasure and wickedness. They became corrupt in their imagination because they left God out of their plans and counsels. They were wise to do what God had never told them to do, wise to do evil. They used the probation so graciously granted them in ridiculing Noah. They caricatured him and criticized him. They laughed at him for his peculiar earnestness and intense feeling in regard to the judgments which he declared God would surely fulfill. They talked of science and of the laws controlling nature. Then they held a carnival over the words of Noah, calling him a crazy fanatic. So we all know the story of Noah and the ark. He preached for over 100 years about the soon coming deluge, flood. What we do have to take into account in this story, and probably the reason why the people ridiculed him, is because people had never seen rain before then. Before the flood, it had never rained. What used to happen before that actual time when the rain did come, what used to happen was water used to rise up from the earth and water the earth. So there is a kind of, you have to give them a bit of grace that they were ridiculing them because it had never rained. And but he preached this word for well over 100 years. It was going to rain. There was going to be a flood. Also, in the middle of that land, he started building a huge boat. Huge. But if you're not a believer, and if you don't study or know the scriptures, then you will ridicule him. It's very, very important to believe there is a God. We are created, meaning if you believe we're created, then you obviously believe and know that we didn't just come from monkeys or some big bang. The technology was far, far, far more advanced than we can ever imagine now, as it was then. The technology was immensely far more advanced than we know now. But then again, there's technology now that we don't know about that they use and are using. And that's been around for decades. These governments we cannot trust because they are just about themselves. Money, power, control over the people. Our God, our Creator, He is about loving His people, us, His creation. If you don't believe, if you don't understand, drop me a line. I'll be very glad to share why I believe. Firstly, we were created. There is a creator. And this earth is soon, or this human experience will soon end. Sabbath blessings.